Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Kyra, and today, after a very long, almost 2 weeks of collection videos, we're gonna wrap this puppy up in a neat little bow. Before we get into all of that, I have been just giving you guys sort of a side note of the day, something completely unrelated to what we're talking about, but something I wanted to say anyways. And today's side note is, I mentioned in another video how very excited I am that Noel has her own bundle with ColourPop, and I will link that down below in case you're interested. I won't be purchasing it only because I already have 2 of the shades, but one thing that she mentioned in a recent video, if I can figure out which video it was, I will link it, but she's been using the ColourPop Just a Tint lippies that are in her bundle as cream blush. Why did I not think of that already? These are perfect for a cream blush. I just wanted to let you guys know that in case it escaped your mind or attention like it did mine. I think that's fantastic. The 2 colors that I have are perfect for cream blush. And with all of that said, let's go ahead and get into the video. So in today's video, what we're gonna do is go category by category, talk about this year's numbers versus last year's numbers in 2019, my no by year collection. I will link the playlist below in case you want to see how my collection has grown. But we're also going to talk about my thoughts on those numbers as well as any goals I might have within categories. Some of you may remember that I used to do quite a bit of project panning, and I do still project pan in my personal life on my own. I just don't make videos about it anymore. So I do have goals within certain categories in terms of the types of products and so on that I want to use up. So let's get into it. For primer, I kept 7 primers and decluttered 3 primers. In 2019, I had 10 primers and now I'm down to 7, so I did go down by 3. I feel really good about that because I'm not a huge primer person. There's a couple of primers I love and I use them for very specific purposes, and so I'm glad to have those, but I would like to work the rest of them out of my collection and just keep the couple that I really rely on for certain things. For foundation, I ended up keeping 9. I ended up in the video with only keeping 10, but then that did include the CoverGirl Pretty Fresh Skin Milk foundation that was in my Shop My Stash for March. That puppy is gone. That's terrible. I can't use it. We'll talk about it in another video. But so I ended up with 9 foundations and I decluttered 4. Last year I had 6 foundations, so I'm up by 3. Math. So I'm up by 3 this year. I'm okay with that. I am looking forward to working with some of the newer foundations in my collection. All the time I'm just finding that the only one I want to use is my Misha Perfect Cover BB Cream. And so honestly, I'm gonna just kind of work through what I have and hopefully retain my wherewithal and not buy any more foundations this year. The Misha one's just perfect for me. It's what I'm wearing today. It's what I want to wear every day. And so I'm fine with the foundation numbers, but I am going to work on moving some of those out this year, whether by declutter if they don't work for me or using them up. For concealer, I ended up getting rid of 2 concealers after I did my final declutter. So I ended up with 8 concealers and I ended up decluttering 3 concealers. Last year I had 7 concealers, and so I am up by 1. So for concealer, I went ahead and gave away 2 concealers after the fact. One was my Pixie color corrector. I just don't need a color corrector, so I just let that one go. And then my daughter, she's almost 12, and she just wanted a concealer to play with, you know, and kind of just when she plays with her makeup. So I went ahead and passed along the Milani Conceal and Perfect concealer to her. It wasn't my favorite. It happened to be a pretty good shade match, so I'm down to 8. I decluttered 3 total, including those 2, and last year I had 7, so I'm only up by 2. I picked up the Glossier Stretch Concealer. I'm freaking loving it. It's what I have on today. So I guess technically I have 9 concealers, and last year I had 7. So I'm up by 2, but again, I'm okay with that. Some of them I know I'm going to use up this year for sure, if not very soon. Some of them I just want to use more before I decide if they work for me or not. So that's another category that's kind of in flux, but I would really love to get that number down this year because I'm finding a couple of concealers that I really love, and I just like to stick with those. So for powders, I ended up giving the e.l.f. sheer under eye setting powder situation again to my daughter. She wanted to have a little loose powder to play with, and I thought that one would be perfect. So I ended up with 9 that I kept, and I decluttered 4. Last year I also had 9 powders, so I'm okay with that. Again, it's a category that I'd like to work through the ones that aren't my favorite, or at least find some use for them, and then just stick with favorites like the Hourglass translucent veil powder. So powders, I'm good with that. Setting spray, I kept 6, decluttered 0. Last year I had 5. I'm really close to finishing up my MAC Fix Plus that's in here, as well as my Morphe Continuous Setting Mist. Those are about to be gone. Feel great about that. So then I will be down to 4, which would be less than last year. Next is bronzer. This was a complete fail. I ended up keeping all 18 of my bronzers, and last year I had 8. This is horrible. This is not acceptable. Almost 20 bronzers. I don't know. The only bronzer I finished was a little small, it was actually this size from Becca of the Capri Coast. So I need to work through some bronzers this year, and I am currently doing that in my unofficial project pan that I started this year. And I do have quite a few mini bronzers in my collection, miniatures, and so I want to work through some of those. There's a couple that I have really good progress on, and I'd like to kind of focus on some of those and work through, as well as any duplicates in my collection. For example, I have 2 NARS palettes, and they both have Laguna in them, and so I want to get use out of at least one of those pans of Laguna. Moving on to blush. Whoo, doggy. I kept 37, decluttered 13, which was really good. I thought last year I had 22, so I'm up by 15 blush. Ooh. I would like to narrow down this blush collection quite a bit, and so I'm just going to be focusing on getting to know some of the blushes that are newer to my collection, or some that I haven't reached for whatever reason, maybe waiting for a particular season. For example, I have a really bright pink Makeup Revolution blush that I purchased, but I haven't even put it on my cheeks because it just screams spring to me. So I'll be using that soon. But yeah, I mean, I know blush is a problem for me. You might know that blush is a problem for me. I love blush. Besides eyeshadow, it is my favorite part of makeup, which is why I typically wear kind of a stronger blush look. I don't care. I rock it. That's just who I am. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Highlights. I kept 21, decluttered 5. That sounds about right. Last year I had 19, so I'm only up by 2 on highlight, and I feel pretty good about that. I actually feel pretty good about where I am with my highlight collection, if you will, my numbers. I wouldn't mind getting rid of a couple this year, but there'll be ones that are newer to my collection that I decide to keep or not keep, as well as I am panning 2 highlighters this year, and they're both minis, so I suspect I will get through those. Face palettes, woo! I kept 16. In the video it was 15, and then I pulled this Tarte Clay Play out of the pile. I just can't seem to get rid of this, and that's okay. The point of this entire series was not to ruthlessly get rid of things and just like get down to this minimalist collection. No, that was not it. And because I felt really strongly about it, I did allow myself to take that back out of the declutter pile. So we are at 16 that I kept and 1 that I decluttered. So last year I had 10, so I'm up by 5. I love face palettes. No word of a lie. I do. I love them. I think, you know, at this point in the future, if I purchase any face palettes, I'm going to really look very critically at what I already have, A, before I buy it, and B, if I buy it, you know, maybe declutter one, pass one on to someone else who is going to use it, and, you know, not hoard things. So, but I love face palettes. I love all-inclusive palettes. So, that's okay. Lips. This was a little surprising to me when I saw the final numbers after I had decluttered every category. So for liners, I kept 8 and decluttered 3. Last year I had 9, so I'm actually down by 1 liner. Bullet lipsticks, I kept 26 and let go of 11. I don't have last year's numbers because of the way that I did it. And then for liquid lipsticks and lip crayons, I kept 27 and decluttered 4. Not very good. And then in the category of gloss, I felt really good about it. I kept 21 and let go of 9. So that was probably well, I guess bullet lipsticks I let go of 11. So that's not bad. Overall, I kept 82 lip products. And I decluttered 27. I feel really good about that, and I feel so nice about how my lip drawers look. I can see everything in there, and so when I go looking for a specific shade that's not in my Shop My Stash, then, you know, I'm set and it's easy to sort of zone in on what I want. Overall, last year, I did have 98 lip products, so I am down by 16 from last year, and that is fantastic. I know certain lip products are just what I reach for. I love my Charlotte Tilbury lipsticks, and I have 4 now, so I do, if I'm gonna wear a nude or something of the like, this one is the one I held up today. This is Bond Girl. It was a gift from my hubby for our wedding anniversary this month. He took me to the brand new Sephora in my city and spoiled me with a few things from Charlotte Tilbury. So anyhow, I feel really good about the lip category overall, but I was still surprised by the number of 82 total when I got down to the end. It doesn't feel like 82, and 82 just seems like so much. But I am panning lippies this year. I am having a lipstick and a lip gloss going at all times in terms of trying to pan them. So there's that. Pretty boring. For the miscellaneous category, I kept 4 eyeshadow primers and declared 0. Last year I had 3. For brows, I kept 5 and declared 1. Last year I had 5. So that's the same. For eyeliners, I kept 9 and decluttered 2. Last year I had 13, so not too shabby. That being said, I do have a new eyeliner from Charlotte Tilbury. It's the Pillow Talk one that I wanted. That was one of the things hubby splurged on for me. And so I'm actually up to 10, but I'm still fine with that. I'm still lower than last year. Mascara, I kept 11 and decluttered 0. Last year I had 7, including backups. And then for eyeshadow palettes, this is something else. So first I'll say that I decluttered 17 eyeshadow palettes this year. And I feel really, really good about that. And my drawer where I keep my eyeshadow palettes feels really, really good about that. In fact, when I had emptied out the drawer of all the palettes when I was getting ready to film, I went to close the drawer after I had taken everything out, and it went whew, like it was so light that it just flew into its place, and I was like, oh, it was loud. So anyways, and now it's so beautiful and organized. I've been putting up pictures of my collection all put away during this video, so you'll see how nice and lovely it looks now. But I kept 57 eyeshadow palettes, and last year I only had 45. Let's just marinate on that a moment. I got rid of 17, and I still have 12 more than I had last year. That's a lot of freaking eyeshadow, man. And I don't think I'm done completely decluttering yet. I do think there are certain palettes that I just need to work with more, which I'll do through my Shop My Stash series and my Reviving My series, where I revisit older eyeshadow palettes and do a few new looks with them to determine, you know, if I still like it or not. So eyeshadow palettes, I think by default, I'm gonna have a video coming up about my beauty budget and stuff, or I'm gonna put it in the March in review video. But I had to make a choice this month and decide whether I was going to, I mean, there's no doubt about I'm sticking to my beauty budget. Number one, $50 a month. That's what I've agreed on with my spouse. And that's plenty for new makeup every single month. I don't know. I don't think anybody else in my life spends 50 bucks a month on makeup. I'll just say that. Number two, I needed to determine if I was going to stick to my palette, eyeshadow palette ceiling of 6 for the year. Or number three, you know, both. And I had a really interesting comment from a subscriber, and I'm going to get into that in that future video where I talk about it. But she was basically like, is the point of all of this to spend less, to own less, or both? Or neither? And for me, it really is about spending less. So, and by default, I'm going to have less eyeshadow palettes this year because I only have $50 a month. And there's sometimes other things that I want that are not eyeshadow. So, you know, more on that later, but I'm surprised. That means last year total, my eyeshadow count went up by 29 new palettes last year. That's a lot. 29 period to own is a lot of eyeshadow palettes. 57 is ridiculous, but I do love eyeshadow. That's my favorite part about makeup. That is, for me, as someone who paints, when I purchase new eyeshadow palettes, it's like a new palette of paints or what have you. So to me, I don't know if there'll ever be enough eyeshadow in my life, but it's what I love doing. It's a huge part of my platform here on YouTube, eyeshadow and eyeshadow looks and eyeshadow tutorials. So I'm just gonna keep these numbers in mind for eyeshadow and the rest of the categories. That's why I have it written down. That's why I went back and looked at the counts from last year so I could see where I went up or down. There were a couple categories where I went down from last year, and I'm very excited about that. So, you know, these are pretty much my thoughts and feelings on my collection and declutter series for this year. It was very different this year. I felt really, really good about it. Last year, I think I was more hesitant to declutter things because I was going into a no-buy year, which lasted 7.5 months. But I think I decluttered less last year because I was afraid that I would run out of things to use or what have you, or that I'd get bored with what I had and maybe have some backup products. But this year I went into this collection and declutter series with the thought that I really wanted to get down, not completely to brass tacks, but pretty damn close, and decide to keep the things that I love and that I want to use, because every time that I'm using something that I don't really love, it's one less time that I can use something that I really do love. So, and that's just where my brain's at this year. It's not that I'm being careless with my money or just being ungrateful or anything like that by decluttering this makeup. The people who received this makeup are very, very happy about it. I think that's great. I love blessing other people with new makeup. You know, teenagers, they make very little money because they go to school, and therefore they have very little money to spend. And so I just love passing things on to other people that are going to get enjoyment out of them when they were just collecting dust in my storage. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Maybe it helps you to think critically about your own collection or your own declutters. I understand that there are some people who do not declutter unless they absolutely have to, and I absolutely respect that. If that's your jam, then that's what you should do. If you like to declutter things regularly and purchase new things regularly like I do, that's fine too. Like, we all can do our own thing and it's totally fine. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, because that really helps me out here on the YouTube, as I like to call it. And I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful, fresh, spring cleaning your collection makeup days. And I will see you in my next video real soon.